Pick Computer Science video number 18. What is HTML? Well, you may well have had some experience using HTML. You might know what it's all about, but we're going to go from the very basics. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it is the standard markup language used to create web pages, meaning it's a sort of programming languages and allow us to create our own web pages and websites. Within A-level computer science, HTML fits into two topics. The first one being exchanging data, also known as networks. Our most used wide area network is the internet, and the biggest part of the internet is the World Wide Web. That's the billions of web pages that we all use every day. The internet itself was developed in the 1960s by the US military under the name of ARPANET, and if you're interested to know what that means, look it up. The web was developed by an organisation known as CERN, the European Organisation for Nuclear Research, and this wasn't until the 1990s. The web is a collection of HTML pages all linked using hyperlinks. So we're used to this concept of following a link from one web page to another, and the links comprise of text or images or areas of images. These web pages often include text, images, audio, video and other media. And there's an example of a nice looking web page just there, but you've all used hundreds of them before. The second topic that HTML might fit into is programming. Although HTML itself is not strictly a programming language, as it provides no logic. What do I mean by that? Well, here we've got an example of a couple of if statements, some selection happening within a program. And you wouldn't be able to write such if statements using HTML. It's not that sophisticated, not that advanced, not used for that purpose. It is used to present and to format. So there's our web page again. It's presented us with that web page and it's formatted things like the text, the font used, the colour, etc. So it's not to do with logic, it's to do with presentation and formatting. Therefore it is known as a markup language. But the reason it's a great place maybe to start programming is that it really does require lots of attention to detail and precision. All programming requires this, and HTML is a great way to get started with it. I've put the phrase or the term GIGO there at the bottom. That stands for garbage in, garbage out. And if your HTML that you type in when you're creating a web page has something wrong with it, i.e. some garbage, then you're going to get something wrong out of it. You're going to get some garbage out of it, hence the phrase GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So this is why it's a great place maybe to start some programming. Now you can view the HTML for any web page on the web by going to that web page in a web browser, right-clicking and going to View Source, and then you'll see hundreds, thousands of pieces of programming language, programming code for the HTML programming language, and a lot of it will be very meaningless. But if we scroll through it, you might eventually find something that you could start with in terms of programming HTML, although more of that in the next video. And you could do this on any device. You can load up a web page on a normal Windows computer, a Linux computer, an Apple Mac, any smartphone, tablet, and lots of other types of device as well. You can view the web page, you can view the source code, and that's because HTML is very portable, very universal, and can work on a web browser on any type of device. It's a standard, and more on that later on. A little bit now on something called WYSIWYG versus HTML. Well, what is WYSIWYG? WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what you get. And that is what we're used to when using most software. For example, when we're creating a PowerPoint presentation, we see the PowerPoint presentation on the screen in front of us as it's going to appear when we actually present it. And same with this screenshot here, we're typing up a letter, and that's what the final letter will look like when it's printed out. Well, with something like Microsoft Word, you can actually create a web page quite easily. Your web page can include hyperlinks, images, video, anything that most web pages can contain, and you can do quite a nice job of it and save it, and most people would think it was quite straightforward and easy. So that might raise the question, why bother learning all of this sort of stuff, all of this programming language, HTML, when you can create a web page perfectly well in lots of pieces of software? Because there are lots of software packages out there that'll do it for you. We've seen Word, you can probably create them in PowerPoint, Publisher. Elements of Visual Studio from Microsoft will allow you to create very sophisticated websites, as will Adobe Dreamweaver. And these content management system style websites now, such as the one shown at the bottom there, are very good for creating your own websites, as are hundreds, probably thousands of pieces of software, many of them online tools that will allow you to create your own web pages and websites. So this really does beg the question, why bother with HTML at all in the first place? Well, here I've got a web page that was created with a WYSIWYG editor, in this case Microsoft Word. And I've got a web page in my other tab here, which has been created with HTML. And both look pretty similar fundamentally. There's probably just some underlining on the first one where there isn't on the second one. But not a massive difference at all. But what there will be a big difference in, if we go and look at where those web pages are stored, and I've got them all stored in these two folders here, is if we go and look at the one made with Microsoft Word, we can see there's the web page, there's the image that's included in the web page, and we've got this folder as well with a few other bits and bobs in there. And if we look at the size of the web page, we'll see it's 29 kilobytes, so that's not ginormous by any stretch of the imagination, but just hold that thought in your mind, 29 kilobytes. If we go back to have a look at the HTML web page, there's the image, there's the HTML page, size 1 kilobyte, so 29 times smaller to produce the same thing. So why is this? Well, if I look at the source code for my HTML page, so I'm in Chrome here, so it just says something slightly different, view page source, right click, view page source. I can see there's my HTML, which I actually coded, and there's some of the tags that you'll learn how to use in the next video. With the WYSIWYG page, if we do the same, we can see straight away that we've got a lot more in terms of HTML code. Masses more, and that is why it's a much bigger file size. Now the reason it does it is that tools like Microsoft Word, Publisher, Visual Studio, Dreamweaver, whatever, will start to add in their own what's called proprietary code. So because these tools aren't as intelligent as the human mind, they will start to basically add a lot of, for want of a better term, flab to your code. So all of this is really unnecessary, but the tool has to do it because it's the way the tool works. So therefore you end up with a much bigger file size, which will take longer to download over a network to a browser. Whereby the source code for the hand-coded web page, just using HTML, is minimalistic, it's light, and it's going to download to a browser much quicker. It only uses the tags that it needs to. Therefore, it will download to a web browser more quickly and will perform better. There are other good reasons for learning HTML. I believe that all developers, all programmers should have a good understanding of HTML. If you go embarking on a programming career, chances are you will have to code some at some point. And if you're building websites, even if you are using WYSIWYG tools, at some point you're going to want to look under the hood effectively and look at the code that your tool has generated and manually edit it. So being able to understand all the different tags and how they work is really beneficial for any programmer. Another good reason is that we should be very proud that it's somebody from Britain that invented HTML. There's Tim Berners-Lee, who was working for CERN in the 90s when he created it. He's the inventor of the World Wide Web. General things that you're going to want to know for your exam about HTML. We know that it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's the standard markup language used to create web pages. It's the underlying language of the World Wide Web. It's a standard that is used for creating web pages. It is a standard that uses text and tags to control what is displayed on a user's web browser. So back to this term, standard. We say standard because HTML can be used on any browser, on any device. The standard has changed over the years, so which tags you can use and which properties of which tags have changed since it was invented, and we're now on something called HTML version 5. But the basic principles and the core tags have stayed the same. These changes might mean that older web pages viewed in newer browsers may look a bit old and dated, and newer web pages viewed on older browsers may now not display correctly. But on the whole, HTML has stood the test of time since the 1990s, and like I say, is universal and can be used on any device. So now please watch video number 19. We'll start to have a look at actually using HTML, and the relevance of this image here might become more clear to you. Cheers for watching.